Check, 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 check. Get rolling on this thing. Are you on? Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Outside Notes. This time around, we're going to be going deep on the cool combos, tricks, the interactions, the neat little rule stuff that you can find in Ikoria. Sometimes people think that in Limited, there aren't these really cool combos or these synergies that you can find, but the truth is you can. Now, some of the cases are pretty edge case, but when they come up, it's amazing if you're ready for it. And today, I'm gonna get you ready for it. So let's start getting into these. Cards like Lava Brink Venturer and Extinction Event have found a real home here, particularly against a few of the companions, namely Obosh and Gyruda. If you can get one of these cards against them, it just blanks their whole deck. It's pretty sweet. Stormwild Caprador is a cool card because when you play it, you think, well, my opponent can't use burn spells on it, but don't forget, you can use your own burn spells on it yourself. Like think Rumbling Rock Slide on my Caprador to give it 6+1/+1 counters and kill your opponent. So this is another cool little combo. If you have Escape Protocol and Rooting Moloch, you can cycle the card goes to the graveyard, you get a trigger from the protocol, you blink the Moloch, it comes back, then it targets the card that you just cycled, and then you can cast it. So it's a way to kind of get the cycle as well as the effect of the cycle card, both of them. It's great. Now this is a rule interaction that many of you will be aware of, but if you're not, it'll change your life forever. If you have a creature that has both First Strike and Death Touch, anything that gets blocked by it will immediately die. So you can take, for example, your Boot Nipper that you chose to have Death Touch on, and then maybe you take a Sanctuary Smasher, you cycle it, especially in combat after your opponent's already blocked. That's the best time to do it. Then you get a First Strike counter on it. Now First Strike damage happens, the opposing creature dies immediately, and your Boot Nipper gets to live another day. Now you can even go a step further with this. This is really sweet. If you can get a creature that has First Strike, Death Touch, and Trample on it, any time that creature gets into combat, you only need to do 1 damage to the blocking creature to kill it, and the rest will trample over. And this even works with some of the spells in the format, like Ram Through. Now this one's kind of become a bit of a classic in the format, but Durable Coil Bug plus Bushmeat Poacher in the late game is a really nice card draw engine. The typical plan is to have the Coil Bug out, block an attacking creature, sacrifice it to the poacher, get your life, get your card, then pay your mana to get it back, recast it again. And as you do this, you're getting a card every time, so you're hitting more lands and giving yourself more flexibility to keep doing it over and over. This little 1-2 punch isn't one you see very often, but main Serval into Solid Footing is 5 damage coming across with Vigilance on turn 3. It is a lot of damage if it's not dealt with, and it's something that, while maybe not a primary game plan, is one you should keep in mind in the format. Another one that's really cool in this format is Bristling Boar. So this is just a run-of-the-mill common, but if you can give it Menace, it actually can't be blocked. It can't be blocked by less than 2. It can't be blocked by only 1 creature, but it can't also be blocked by more than 1 creature, so therefore it can't be blocked at all, and you've got a 4-power unblockable if you can get a Menace counter on it. That's pretty sweet. Of course, one of the cool ones in the set is Glimmerbell. If you put Porcuparrot and Mutate onto it, you can get multiple activations depending on how much mana you have. This is true for value engines like Parcel Beast as well. Just something to consider if you do need a decent Mutate target. Glimmerbell can do it. Speaking of Porcuparrot, this one's really cool. If you mutate it onto a Thieving Otter doesn't actually say deals combat damage, it just says deals damage. So you can tap it as a pinger, ping your opponent with the Porcuparrot's ability, and you'll get to draw a card too. Now that is nice. And the combos do get pretty crazy with Porcuparrot as well. Remember, if you can get it onto a Death Touch creature, so you mutate Porcuparrot onto a Death Touch creature or the other way around, every time any amount of damage that you do is lethal. So it's tap, kill a creature. That's a nice little thing to have in a game of Limited. Another great 1-2 punch, or maybe this is a 3-4 punch, that you see in this format is turn 3 Thieving Otter, and then turn 4 mutate Dreamtail Heron onto it. This gives you the card off of Dreamtail Heron, gives you a 3-4, but critically, it has flying. It's very likely to be able to get in and draw an extra card off of the Otter as well. Now this one's a classic. This one, whenever it pops up in any format, you should always keep an eye on it. And that's ways to steal your opponent's creatures and then ways to sacrifice them. So in this format, it ends up being tentative connection to steal their creature, and then you can use mutual destruction or weaponize the monsters or something to do it. And in fact, I even have an example here. So there's tentative connection to, steal the Yorion. Take that, Yorion. Yorion had it coming, let's be honest. And then you use weaponize the monsters to throw Yorion at your opponent's face. It's a huge swing in your direction for sure. It's tough to come back from a big swing like this. Another good 1-2 punch in the format is really simple one. It's Forbidden Friendship and Of One Mind. Forbidden Friendship costs 2 mana and it gives you a human and a non-human creature. And that means that you've met the requirement for Of One Mind and you can cast it for just 1 blue mana. Mystic Subdual is an interesting and pretty complicated card in the set as well. You can use it on a mutate creature. For example, if they have a creature, they go to mutate, you can Mystic Subdual it and they won't get any of the triggers and it won't have any of the extra abilities whenever they mutate. So you can really shut down a mutate pile with the card. If they get abilities after, like with counters, then those will count though. Oh, this next one's really nice. Cathartic Reunion's already a playable card in the set, but if you have Riel or Lutri, the card becomes absurd. For example, with Lutri, if you have the 5 mana, you cast Cathartic Reunion, discard 2 cards, then you flash in Lutri and copy Cathartic Reunion. But here's the catch. You don't have to discard the cards for the copy, so you get 6 cards in your hand and it feels amazing. Riel has a similar effect where you're basically going to get 5 cards off of it. It's awesome. Ominous Seas is a really powerful uncommon in this set that seems geared towards getting triggers when you cycle cards or have your draw step, but it does trigger off of other ways to draw cards as long as it's actually drawing the card. This means cards like Of One Mind or Cathartic Reunion work really well. Even, Facet Reader, not Face Reader, that will also trigger it as well. But there are some cards like Anticipate, for example, that don't actually have you draw a card. You put the card into your hand. That's not the same thing, and they won't trigger cards like Ominous Seas. There's some evil things you can do with Hunted Nightmare. Hunted Nightmare gives your opponent's creature a death touch counter, but then you can use Clash of Titans to have that creature fight their best creature, and they will probably both kill each other. It's nasty. All right, I may have discovered the worst tempo play in the history of Magic the Gathering. This is casting Colossification on your opponent's creature to tap it down and then kill them. Maybe a little better idea would to be put it on a Glimmer Bell, then pay the 2 mana and attack. Yeah, it's 9 mana, it's kind of tough. You could also put it on a creature you have with Trample and then ram through. That way that extra trample damage would carry over and maybe kill your opponent. Something I discovered recently, did you know you can just cast Yadaro and attack with it? It's funny because whenever I draw it, I think, all right, how many more times do I have to cycle this thing until I get it back for free? And then I look down and I'm like, oh, I actually have 7 mana. I should just kill my opponent with this. Now, this is a weird one. I've never seen this actually happen, but we do have blue mana ramp here in this set. Mythos of Illuna does allow you to copy any permanent, including lands. So you could fix your mana or ramp it maybe. One weird thing you can do is you can use Startling Development to turn a human creature into a not human creature so that you could, if you absolutely needed, mutate onto it. I haven't seen this happen, but you can do it. Blazing Volley isn't a card that sees a lot of main deck play, but a couple of times when you may want to consider it is if you have Obosh, especially as your companion, because it turns it from doing 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls to 2, which is a huge difference. And similarly, if you have Lutri, you may want to run it because you can copy it for pretty cheap and get an additional damage. And doing 2 to your opponent's creatures can be a big game. Lurking Deadeye is not a May ability. Now, this can come up in narrow situations, and there's usually 2 ways. One way is your opponent entered combat and you blocked, they have a damaged creature, you have a damaged creature, and then they cast Lurking Deadeye to kill your damaged creature. If you can return it to your hand, sacrifice it, get rid of it some way before that Deadeye hits the battlefield, they'll have to kill their own creature. And of course, remember, don't pull a Deathsea. You never want to do that. I'm sorry, Deathsea.
Also an annoying one. I'm just gonna flash this in.
No.
2 flares incoming. No, I forgot! I forgot!
Next one is for Momentum Rumbler. When I read this card, I kind of shortcut it in my head. All right, play it, it's a 3/3, attack with it once, it's a first strike, attack with it another time, it's a double striker. I get it. That is not how it works though. When you attack with it once, it's a first striker. When you attack with it again, it gets double strike until end of turn, and it keeps doing that each time you attack. It does not have double strike though, so if you try to use it as a blocker, as I once did on a 6/6, you are chump blocking. Be aware of it. Don't be like me. All right, this next one's about Obosh, and we know what Obosh does. It cares about the converted mana cost of the source of damage, but don't forget, you can augment that source of damage using, for example, a combat trick and still get that double benefit as long as it's still coming from that original source. Here is a case in point for just that. Note here, by the way,
I guess I could just attack
opponents at 26.
with everything. And currently they're taking... Oh, this is actually lethal. This deck's ridiculous. If they don't block here, then fully grown just kills them.
Bang, bang.
Oh man, Obosh is ridiculous.
This one doesn't come up often either, but if you do find a way to copy Mythos of Vadrok, is that even the one? Yes, I did it. If you find a way to copy Mythos of Vadrok. Now, that isn't easy to do, but if you do, you'd figure that's a game-winning combination. The thing you need to know is the copy will have the same targets and the same amount of damage as the original. You don't get to re-choose that. So make sure that you plan ahead and distribute the damage in a way that gets the things dead that you need to get dead, or else it may end up in tears for you. One thing I had to learn about this format, oh, good. We did it. Be careful. The cards that get exiled to it as it looks for the number of permanents that it's going to find, they just stay exiled. Those don't go back on the bottom of your library. And if you're getting kind of too close for comfort, you could deck yourself, if you get a third or a fourth trigger on it. So be careful. There's such narrow things. When they come up, they can be really important. But I knew I needed some help finding as many of these as I could get. So I asked Limited Resources co-creator and streamer over at Going Optimal, Ryan Spain, to help me come up with a list of these. So let's call Ryan and see what he came up with for us. It's the Spainer. What's up, Ryan?
What's up? Hey, Marsh, how's it going?
Good. So what did you come up with for us?
Well, I've been playing this set a lot, of course, and so some things have come up that sparked me on this one. Let's see. Yorion. Yorion can be difficult to build around there's not many ETB effects. Not many things enter the battlefield and do stuff in this set because that's kind of been taken by Mutate. But speaking of Mutate, one thing Yorion can do is break up your mutate piles into their component parts. So if you mutate a few times, get a bunch of value out of the mutate, and then cast Yorion and target that mutate pile, it'll come back in as the separate creatures. So it's kind of like
cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting you got the hard cast and you got the mutate value out of the your mutate creatures if you go with the Yorion.
Oh, that's really cool.
Also, there are some very narrow scenarios with Blade Banish considerations. If you have, say, like a 3-power flyer or a 3-power evasive creature that you have been able to get through with and Oppo hasn't been able to do anything about, you might, if you mutate onto it with like a 4-power creature, you might want to choose the 3-power to avoid Blade Banish if that's like your primary win condition, and specifically if like you haven't played any 4-power creatures and it seems like they might have one stuck in their hand. Let's see. Oh, Reptilian Reflection. That is an enchantment that when you cycle, turns into a creature. And often you're cycling on your opponent's turn to use your Snare Tactician to tap their stuff down or something. And it can be pretty easy digitally or even in just to activate your Reptilian, make a 5/4. If you're not going to actually block, don't do that though, because you might expose your reptile to some sorcery speed removal. So
right.
It's you don't have to make it a creature, so you might want to leave it as an enchantment if you're not going to actively use it as a combatant. Let's see, Song of Creation. I don't think Song of Creation is all that good on balance, but it's undeniably powerful when it goes off, and it can be fun to try it out if you can embrace the variance of it. But if you do run it, try to reduce that variance by running a facet reader or two if you can find them. That way, because you have to empty your hand at the end of your turn, and then if you draw a land, you're stuck, right? You did nothing for that turn.
Right.
So if you have a facet reader out, you can discard that land and hopefully find a spell to keep that value chain going. Another one that has come up very narrowly, but sometimes, spontaneous flight can be combined with plummet, but especially shredded sails
Sure.
to take out a must-kill ground pounder. You might have to wait until it shrinks back down because, it is going to get +2/+2, but it keeps that flying counter. So you can follow up when it shrinks back down to deal it 4 damage with the shredded sails. And I wouldn't draft around this, but sometimes your red-white cycling decks just happen to have that, and you have, you have a must-kill ground creature, and you got a way to do it that you didn't have before.
That's a really nice one because those are all instant speed, right? So you could even set it up where you're not even taking a hit from the creature in the air.
Yep. So those are the ones I came up with.
Those are great.
It's a fun set with a lot of weird stuff going on, and there's even weirder stuff if you look close.
Hey, Rye, thanks a lot for taking the time, and we'll see you over at Going Optimal on your stream.
You got it. See you, man.
As always, great stuff from Ryan. Always good to hear from him and some cool interactions there to add to our growing list. I'd love to hear any of the ones that you happen to have as well. Let me know. A few highlights before we go? Why not? This first one actually comes from Ryan. And this, by the way, I have to say, we've all been here before, right? You're playing against a cycling deck. They got to be out of cyclers, right? It finally happened.
And they're out of cycling. We win! What?
You take it. You just take it. Speaking of loving the format.
Yeah. What does this do? Yeah. It's not going to do anything, but I still like it. My mutate stack's gone, though. But they don't have a board. Everything's cool.
I think we've all been there before, Jamie. And then, just wouldn't be the same if we didn't have Ben Nonsense here. Ben shows us, if you do pull off one of these sweet combos, the exact expression you should make.
Isn't it just like a toothy roar? It's like, ah!
Yes, Ben, that is exactly what you should do. And that's going to do it for this episode of Outside Notes. I really hope that you found some of these tips, tricks, combos, and interactions useful, and maybe you can even pull them off in your next draft on your own. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Thanks again for watching this episode of Outside Notes. I'm really glad that you decided to come along and hang out. If you want to get more content like this, subscribe to the channels here so that you can be updated when the new content comes out. And with that, we'll see you next time.